Hi, second grade. We're back for part two of our lesson on jobs, and our lesson objective is to examine a variety of sources to understand that New York City jobs and industry changed over time. So you've looked at some videos and some documents, and last time we were here, we talked about what kind of jobs people do in our community today. Now we're going to look at what kinds of jobs did people have in New York City over time. Did you ever wonder what kinds of jobs people had before? So let's take a look. In the 1700s, we looked at blacksmiths, cobblers, that's somebody who works with shoes. A tailor is somebody who mends or makes clothes. And you know what? We still have these jobs today. But the outfits that they wore back then and the tools that they used or the materials might be a little bit different from now. Here's some jobs in the 1800s. Sometimes children also worked in the 1800s. Remember that more and more people were coming to New York City, and they were also inventing all kinds of machines and technology. So as more and more people moved here and the population, the amount of people that were here grew, they started to make more and more things, and they needed them faster, and they needed a lot of them. So they created factories. So here are some people working in factories. They worked very, very hard with these machines. And here are some children selling newspapers. And here are some construction workers balancing on the wires of the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, even though we have all of these things today, we don't have children selling newspapers, and we don't have construction workers hanging on the wires of the Brooklyn Bridge with no cables or safety nets. So things are a little bit different. And now here's some jobs in the 1900s. So these are also jobs that we have today, but the uniforms might be a little bit different, and some of the technology or things that people were using back then had definitely changed. Police officer, nurse, postal worker, teacher. So remember, in the last lesson, we talked about what kinds of jobs do people have in New York City now? Doctor, teacher, bus driver, grocery store worker. So those are all jobs that they also had in the 1900s. Even bus drivers, remember they were driven by horses at one point? But as things changed, grocery stores look different, teaching looks different, and postal workers and driving in his mail truck, all different, right? So let's revisit how things changed over time, the occupations over time, and we're going to look at our timeline. So in the beginning, when there wasn't as many people living in New York City, and people had simpler materials and they didn't have fancy machines, people would make shoes by hand. People still make shoes today, but not in the same way. Then more and more people started immigrating to New York, and they started having the Industrial Revolution where they made factories and they were able to make more things at once. And then about 100 years ago, there's more people moving to the city, and things got a little bit more modern. Here's a nurse from that time. And here's Manhattan now, with current people driving the buses in New York City. So think about the jobs we looked at today, and how are they similar or different from the jobs we have now? Think about that and think about how they changed over time. Goodbye, second grade.